I'm going to bring in Michelle Gilbert to join me, at least from a video standpoint. And so Michelle should be popping up on screen. Michelle, you can wave and say hi to people if you want to.
Hi there.
So there we go. And you're actually unmuted, so we're going to do that. And we're going to shift over to content and get us going. While we're going, you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to go as we shift over into Teams and a little more Teams and how to?
Sure, absolutely. So first off, let me introduce myself. I'm Michelle Gilbert. I am based out of Edina, Minnesota, and I'm a Microsoft Teams technical specialist. So I work on all things Teams. My whole life is in Teams. Today, we're going to talk to you about what are some cooler things, just extending itself really beyond the communication and collaboration. What can we do that we're throwing in apps to tabs and forms and different things that can really extend your capabilities within Teams and in collaborating. So today, Doug and I came up with a few things that would be pretty cool on event planning. We're going to show you forms. We're going to show you cool things like Mindmaster, setting up a poll in Poly, what it means to add a tab. So first we're going to show you, or first we're going to actually walk through what we've done, and then we're going to show you how we did it.
We're going to show you a little of the visual effects, and if someone's curious about this, we'll teach you how to do this a little bit down the road. What we've got is we got a couple different views, and I'm just getting one more thing queued up to make sure we've got it. We want to be able to show you the side by side, so it might be a little bit small at times, but let's go ahead and show you. So right now you see Michelle is kind of big on the screen, and the lower right hand corner, that's my computer. And if we swap it around, we'll be able to tag those around so we can kind of show the back and forth of the two of us working on things. It might be a little bit blurry, but we wanted to show you both sides, and the breadcrumbs we provide later will let you go along. So if you can't quite read everything, just try and get the gist of what we're going. So we figure being able to show people both sides of the equation, and I may experiment with the layout and try and make it as clear as possible as we go through. So we've got the ability to kind of shift around our layouts and try and show you a little bit of back and forth. So we'll be experimenting with that as we go. So again, our topic was a little beyond chat and meetings. So we're going to make an assumption here. We're going to assume that you've already used a little bit of Teams and that you have chats and meetings going, but you may not be using a whole lot more than that. Fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's what we're going after today. And hopefully you'll pick up a few things. Again, I run a weekly show called Office Flash Friday. You can look that up if you want to. And we're always doing kind of what's new and going through it. It's a little more enterprise focused. So for this segment, we tried to pick things we thought were applicable to organizations of any size, as opposed to just, our super large enterprise customers where Michelle and I normally hang around. And it's fun because I always say my customers are ocean liners, and a lot of the success customer base are more like speedboats. So you guys can actually go do things in a fairly quicker period of time than the giant ships we normally deal with. So let's dive into it. Michelle gave the layout. First, we're going to go ahead and talk through a little bit of having just I do want to do one. I guess I wanted to cold open by starting with one cool meeting feature I think people don't take advantage of, and that is the humble meeting recording. So we're sitting here in a team, and you can see we've got this Success April event team, and we're in the general channel, and you'll notice there's a meeting recording that's present right inside of it. Now, if you go ahead and fire up any meeting, and I won't go all the way into starting one up, if you're to start a meeting up on top of it, and if you haven't played around, you just saw it go on with the snap camera. It's kind of fun in order to do it. So if you came in here, you'd say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start this meeting and go on. Once a meeting's going, there's a little ellipsis button, and you can actually choose to start recording the meeting. If you record the meeting, when the meeting is over for your staff meeting, whatever it is, you get a link to the recording, which is stored inside of Microsoft Stream. So here's the meeting. Michelle and I did a test one yesterday on top of it, and you may hear it play in the background real briefly as it comes up. So you click on it. So let's pretend that we were playing this event, and there's Michelle and I, and here's it puts in a little banner page for, what the topic of the meeting was and everything else. And once you get into the meeting, you can go ahead and hit play, and you can go back through. Now, I don't know about you, Michelle, how efficient are most of your meetings?
Well, they can drag. For sure.
Some can drag. And the beginning, as people come in, there's always that 10-minute lag, or maybe it was a staff meeting you missed and there was a certain part where they talked about the budget. We always like to name drop animals in our test recordings and stuff. Yesterday we did llamas and all sorts of things that were on top of it. But what I essentially wanted to point out is when you load a video into Stream, you can play it right from within Teams. There's also this button over here that says Open in Microsoft Stream. When you do that, that meeting comes in, and if you look at the meeting that we have right here, so there's Michelle and I from our meeting yesterday, and notice if you've activated, there's a transcript over on the right-hand side, and you can actually search the transcript of your meeting. So if you really did want to know when we talked about llamas, you can find out when we were talking about llamas and porcupines and all that stuff. But if you're like, well, I'm not really interested, I wanted to know when they talked about the budget. So if budget's in there, it should come back here in a second. on top of it. Yep, there it is at 53 and in a minute and 12. And you can
Mhm.
say where they talked about budget or maybe llamas. And if you click on that point, it'll fast forward your video to that particular point. So you can skip over all the part of any recording and get to the part you want. It's one of the cooler things if you know. Now, it does, by the way, this trick, even though Teams meetings, you hit the button, the recordings go up there, kind of magic, right?
Mhm.
And they get indexed and searchable and all that stuff. And there's a few other things too. You can see like who was talking when. There's like a people view on top of it. You could add some interactivity into that video to have a little survey or a quiz about the video if you want to. So there's some cool things you can do when you pop on top of that. But you can also just take any video that you have within your enterprise or any video you download, and you can just upload that video. So in this case, someone took an hour-long public presentation from one of the Microsoft Build conferences, from a conference that was relevant to the industry, and you can just load that video up and you get that exact same interactivity and transcript of any video that you upload. So while this isn't directly Teams related, it is knowledge related to the work on a team. Any video you put up, you could go ahead and look out and say, I'm pretty sure, since it's the Azure CTO, he's going to start talking about Azure at some point in the thing, and it'll then come back and find all the times that was mentioned within the transcript of this video. So this is a pretty long one. So you can say they didn't get out to talking about Azure until about an hour and 15 minutes in. Well, I would like to skip to that point, please.
Mhm.
And I really just want to get to the point where they talk about blockchain on Azure. So this is the ability for you to take any video. That means if you had a meeting that was in WebEx or it was in Zoom or somewhere else, and you get that recording, you can load it in and have the exact same interactivity on top of it that you'd have with a Teams meeting.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, we have a question that's related to this. So we have a question from an attendee. How do you work through the privacy issues and general distrust of using recording features? He wants to encourage using this more, but people are skeptical.
So I would tell you that there's really two things about that. First, recordings are automatically secured only to the group that participates in them. You can also put forth a privacy policy. I didn't talk about that, but if actually we did kind of talk about it when we had the cold open for it, because Michelle and I were going in and it said at the very beginning, hey, you know, your privacy policy comes in up top. So you do have to have a privacy policy you communicate to your employees about this. There is a certain amount of, does your organization want to do that or not? That's fair. You have to consider through that. The vast majority of my organizations are allowing team video recording, but they do have that privacy policy pop up that says the person has to consent. You don't have to do it for everything. And certainly you have to decide what kind of meetings you want to record. So for example, when we do certain kinds of HR meetings or something as a manager, those don't get recorded. But generally speaking, it's the security, privacy, and visibility around the recordings that tend to drive it. Now, again, you could just only use this for training videos or for more public content if you want to sort of build that awareness of what it's like and to understand the privacy and security controls, and then kind of eventually open that up to more granular use. But I find if people find something extremely useful, then it does tend to drive behaviors. But I would say if you have a challenge around that, then start with doing more public training content, turning it more of a knowledge base asset, and then let that culture spread down to an awareness and an understanding of what a video policy should look like. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I agree, Doug. I'd say that the use case I use it for the most is I'm having a customer engagement and I'm recording it, and whomever may not have been able to make the meeting or want to see it again, then I can go ahead and share it out. So it's very intentional when I hit the record.
If you look at the video privacy policies and the rest of the stuff that's out there, that should at least help steer you home. Start with the public stuff. Now, you came out of regulated industry, Michelle, right?
Yes.
So you came out of financial services and areas where there's a tremendous concern for privacy. And I know video was actively being deployed and used inside of your old world, right?
Correct.
So,
and you have to think of, well, what was used before, and WebEx recordings have been around a long time also in other organizations. So I think you have to evaluate what have you been doing and how does it translate to the new products.
Yeah. The world is changing in regards to that, in regards to how much people are posting in the Facebook. So there's a generational aspect to that. We can't ignore that. There's 5 generations in the workforce. So we may have to crawl, walk, run when it comes to using some of these things. But if you demonstrate that it is secured to that group, it's a lot easier. Because the one thing that's true is, you know, I always say we hire people for their skills, but the whole person shows up for work. Their vacations, their family, they're getting ill, like no matter what. And so how do we be more inclusive and let people participate more? And this is a way to do that. So
yeah. And I would also, you know, in your organization, look at your governance, look at inside of the Teams Admin Center, review the live events policies. and you may determine there's only a subgroup in your company that you want to allow recording. So take a look at all the different options that are out there.
So let's go on to our next topic, which you're kind of leading a little bit more around, and I think we're going to dive in on co-authoring, right?
Yeah, we sure are. So I've got a channel under my Team Success April event called Budget. And within Budget, I have plenty of files. All right, so as you see here, I added a new tab. So you can do a few things. You can add any number of files to the Files tab. But then if you find one that's of value, which I did, which is the event budget, I went ahead and I pinned it as a tab. So we'll show you how to do that later. Things are running a little slower here. So you can see when the files load up, there's a bunch of them in there. So we've got expense here, and then now event budget. So this is an actual Excel file. So when I clicked on the tab and I added Excel, it brought it in. And because Doug is a part of the team and a part of this channel, he's going to go ahead and co-author with me.
Yeah, so if I come over, I can see the event budget is pinned up, and you're watching me in the lower right-hand corner as a sort of tiny version of that. And you'll notice that here I am inside of the budget, and I can pop in and go ahead and interact with that spreadsheet and be kind of real-time co-authoring with Michelle as soon as hers comes in. On top of it, yeah, well, we're told to be live on the air with everyone's home internet, and we are live on the air with everyone's home internet. Well, we come in, we just so you guys know, like the public stat, we saw in 2 weeks, we saw a massive increase from like 600 million minutes to 2.8 billion minutes per day of like Teams collaboration and conferencing. So people are working in this stuff live. All right, so if I go ahead and put in here, and I wanted to put in a little 600 and the little tiny thumbnail on top of that, and as I move around, as soon as Michelle's paints in, she'll be able to live co-author on top of that stuff. So as I come in and put in, $400 on top of it, so we'll have that exact same spreadsheet content interactively edited back and forth between the two of us. Now, if we wanted to, we could open it in the desktop app, or if you want to, you can pop this out into its own full window on top of it. But essentially, we get this ability to pin that content that people care about and to have a discussion around it. Now, notice that it shows up over in the discussion. I see it here on the event budget side, right? And if I wanted to pop in and have a chat about that, I can go ahead and come in here and say, I'll just do Megan, can you review? And you'll notice that the chat appears alongside the actual spreadsheet itself, but it also appears back in the chat thread inside of the general channel. And so I'm gonna kind of turn myself to the focus element here, just get it widened back out so people can see my side of it along with yours. So now we both got the same ability to come in. I can go ahead and go straight to that document, and notice when I click the link, boom, there we are, and we're in the same spreadsheet going to town on top of that. We have our discussions along the side, numbers are looking good, and you get your normal alerts on top of it. Now, you may be posting these things inside of, like the spreadsheet inside of a team, but don't forget you can also do that stuff inside of one-to-one. So if I come into Michelle and I'm working on top of something with Michelle, notice I normally get these tabs for file organization. Let's say Michelle is one of my employees. I can actually take that same tab and co-authoring capability, and I can pin like a Word document or something else that I wanted to do. I can pin that directly. So if she and I are working on a one-on-one project, in addition to stuff we're working on the teams, don't forget you can pin those same tabs anywhere within the system. Everywhere you see a chat or something else, if you have something you're working on with that person. So, and you can do it even for quote unquote external participants. So like Vanessa and I were working on this event together. We could have pinned the PowerPoint presentation to the one-on-one chat for the two of us and had it sitting there kind of waiting. So I would say this is the power of co-authoring and the power of context, because when I come into this channel, I get all the things I need for that dialogue. And I think that's one of the most powerful things. Not only, and you can see there's Michelle in there, you can see where she's editing on top of it. And I'll go ahead and put in the $600 on top of that. And Michelle can see where I'm editing. So I'll flip it around so you can kind of see both sides of that equation. So if we put Michelle on stage, you can see she sees where Doug is and I see where she is inside of the spreadsheet. So as I move around or she moves around, you can actually see which cell we're in and what we're doing on top of it. So we can do cool co-authoring on top of the whole thing. So I put the value in, you can see it popped in, and we're off to the races on top of it. Anyway, so there's the co-authoring and tab pinning inside of Teams. If you haven't used it, we think it's pretty cool. Other co-authoring stuff, Michelle, use cases you see from people?
Yeah, actually, I see a lot of it, especially when it comes to PowerPoint presentations. You can be on other slides, as you know, a few people are throughout the presentation making changes. So the co-authoring on presentations pretty popular. I'd also say things like contracts, where you
that's
have
the big
legal
one, right?
teams. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Multiple attorneys needing to
proposals.
be.
Yep.
Yeah, proposals. So yeah, definitely many use cases.
Hey,
right,
Doug
so-
and Michelle, we
Yeah.
have an attendee question related to this topic.
Fire
If
away.
you add a file in Teams, does the original live there only? So I think this is around where a file lives once you add it to a team.
If you put a file up like Michelle did, uploaded the 2019 expenses, and I'll go full screen on me so you can see. Michelle, you want to then talk through kind of what we're seeing from the file library, and I'll click
Certainly.
for you.
Yeah, you bet. So within the channel of a team, you have a tab called Files. Within Files, that's actually the back end is a SharePoint document library folder. Right. And so the channel name is Budget. The folder name inside of SharePoint is also called Budget. When you upload the file, it gets added to that shared document library for you to do co-authoring and collaborating.
So I popped it open. If you look, you'll notice that here we are inside of that Success April event. I just clicked that little button that said open it in SharePoint. And you'll notice here's this document library. We've got budget, closeout, planning in general, right? And then the end user survey that's sitting out there that we played around with, okay? So we got those. And if you look, then there's our general budget, closeout, and planning. You'll notice there was one folder reviewing, so we can foreshadow what we're talking about. You notice you do not see manager review. But to answer your question on the documents, there should only be one true copy of the document, and everything else should be just a reference or a link to that. And we want to avoid multiple copies and the rest of it. But if you uploaded one, then the old one's still hanging around wherever you put it. So there are actually using Microsoft Flow and some other things. Some people have publication to put things through stages to different things. I mean, you can get very advanced around content flows. That's why I said it depends. Because you might have a working copy of something in the HR team and have the formal document somewhere else. And then at the end, someone hits a button and it publishes it out to that formal place. So you can get very creative with all this stuff if you want to. But in the general, when you upload it, there's one copy and that's it. So pinning documents and tabs within it, those documents then live in a SharePoint library that's within the team. Mm-hmm. And you can look at it from either the SharePoint side or the team side if you want to. And you'll also see it in the Office applications in your My Places. You'd see the Success April event sitting in there. So if you went to File Open in Word, you'd see that place sitting there, and then you could File Open and browse the file library from within Office too. So one file, all places. All right, what do we got next, Michelle?
All right, let's go and move into the general channel. And on the top, there's a tab called Mindmeister.
This is one of my favorite things. So this is a third-party example. Now we're going to show it, and then we're going to show you how we did it. So if you come in here, if you were to pop in, notice it pulls up and it puts a mind map in the middle of it. And we just called ours very creatively the Success Stuff Mind Map. And so I don't know if anybody else is a Mindmap fan, but again, I am. And if you'll notice, it's shared with two people. You can see there's Michelle Gilbert and the admin, and see how it has Michelle's word is floating in there. And we'll say, live edit, and we'll hit enter on top of it. And then if I wanted to, I could add a little subtopic under live edit and say, don't do it. Right, so that you shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff when you're on the air for your mind maps and everything else. All right, so you get the idea. So you can come in and move your map around and zoom out a little bit to see it, and then you can see Michelle's in there. We're in brainstorming mode, so everybody's adding in, and as Michelle adds stuff on top of it, it'll synchronize it out, and we'll have more and more of these trees build out, and so we can go into live example. The reason I love this example is because it's not actually a service that has anything to do with Teams at all, but it's sitting here in the general channel waiting for us. So I added in a new tab called Mindmeister, see when it happened, and we did it yesterday, or on Friday, I think it is, when we tossed that one in, and we just tossed this in, and then anyone who comes into this team gets taken instantly to this mind map for this team. So if you liked some mind mapping software, how would you normally link it to this project? Does that make sense? That's why I love this so much. So I'm a brainstormer and a whiteboarder, but if you have a distributed one, and apparently you've added awards and you're working on polls and messing around on top of it. So you can see Michelle's adding stuff in the corner and the map is updating. So this is an example of using somebody else's collaboration cloud service, in this case, MindMeister, embedding it in Teams, and Teams is providing all the context and integration. So if we were to add another one, if we came to budget, notice budget doesn't have the mind map. This one does. If we added a mind map to budget, it would be the budget mind map, right? It wouldn't be the same one. And it's super easy to add these things. All you're going to do is hit plus, and any of the ones you've allowed from your organization or the ones you've recently used, they're going to be sitting there. So we're going to go ahead and put this one in. I'll just leave it alone. Do we want to create a new map or use an existing one? So you could, in there, they allow you to do it. So we'll go ahead and hit save on top of it. It's going to go ahead and create that out, post to the team. And here's our fresh new mind map sitting within budget using another cloud service that's ready to go. In this case, this one's going to be associated with the budget channel. To prove we're doing this right, we'll come back around to here and we go to there. Now, this is an example of an integrated third-party service that's coming directly inside of Microsoft Teams. And it's one of my personal favorite ones because I'm a mind map guy. So I think they are really cool. Now, there's a whole lesson on admin control and which of these cloud services, because you are actually signing in to someone else's cloud service, right? This is Teams is bringing it all together and putting all of your apps in a nice little wrapper, but you're getting that. And what you decide to allow in this marketplace of all the crazy things that you could do, or the ones that we provide that you can stand up on your own with a private instance. So there's samples that you can go download and you can stand up your own version of things like badging and meeting tracking and a few other ones. Like there's all this amazing stuff you can do. So that's really the first third party thing we wanted to show you is Teams isn't just about Microsoft. The first lesson was recording, going to Microsoft Stream. The second one was embedding documents and tabs and co-authoring using Microsoft Word and Excel and stuff. This one has nothing to do with us other than Teams is the wrapper around it and still does let you contribute.
Yep, I think it's great add because really you're bringing in the business systems integration inside of Teams so you don't have to go out to those locations and work. I see a ton of customers, Doug, that are actually bringing in ServiceNow, Salesforce, so many different applications so people can work with right in the team and then interact with that product.
Yeah, let's say you're a Salesforce or another CRM system user. You can embed that client's record. Like say you had a team or even a channel for customers or projects, you can embed that Salesforce or Dynamics or whatever it is tab directly in that team so you don't have to go hunting for all these tools.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Now, again, it can also just be your launch pad because if you hit the little web icon, it'll bust it out and take you to that particular thing in a full page web. So you have that ability to do that as well.
Yeah, again, a ton of customers not only are bringing in the third-party apps, but also the first-party apps that we don't really think of, which is you can bring in your SharePoint Online intranet as a tab to your left rail. So you're really, again, creating kind of a one-stop dashboard or shop to see everything. And you get the homepage of your intranet. And if you want to go out and get more pages and more information, you certainly can. But definitely customers are using this for accessing everything and being that one first stop to the applications.
Yeah, let's point that out. So we just came over here to the ellipsis on the left-hand side, and we said find an app. And I'm just going to put OneNote in there just because, hey, why not? On top of it. And now notice if I come back around, if I just go back into either chat or Teams, right, I can pin those individual applications that are on top of it. When I open OneNote, it's over there. But if I right-click and say pin, now OneNote is now permanently there, and I can just pop back in and get to my OneNote whenever I want to from well, we're shrunk super tiny right now, but if you had a larger screen, we tried to blow everything up on top of it. You get to see your list of pinned applications, which are sitting there. The bigger your screen is, the more we give you tiles on top of it. So anyway, you can see there's OneNote pinned. Otherwise, it would be there visually. But we're trying to at least give you a shot at seeing this stuff today.
And it's important to note. It's important to note too, Doug, that what you're pinning on your left rail, soon that same pinning and what you pin here will be on your mobile device. So think about that curation that you can have in Teams and what you can do. It's just getting more robust. Yeah,
more and more of those tabs are working. Some will do what I call a slide, where you'll be in them and you'll tap it and it'll launch you out to that service with hopefully with single sign-on, right? But the more and more that work directly within, then it's just this elegant sign-on and consumption experience directly within. So we're working really hard, not just on the PC. You and I actually did all the recordings, all the tests on last Friday from our production Microsoft machines, nothing but browser.
Yeah.
Right?
Nothing but browser.
No, and Michelle and I were kind of blown away by how good that's gotten. I hadn't really done one of those in a while because I'm always working with my primary machine and I'm mobile device a lot, but I hadn't done browser only in a while, and it was very good. audio, video, content sharing, like the whole thing. It was impressive, actually. Which is kind of nice if you happen to be borrowing a device or something where you don't want to, stain it with a bunch of software. It's pretty handy. Okay, so we've got apps, third-party apps, the ability to bring them in. When you go hit that Teams component, you'll see the ones you have up top, and all those individual tabs are laying across the top. The greater your screen resolution is, the more you'll see, as opposed to having the drop down. And then yes, you can rearrange the order of them and make sure that the ones you want to emphasize are always, pinned left, if you will. Vanessa, do we have any questions on third-party apps?
We do. We have a question. Can you embed a custom CRM system?
Probably. If it has a web experience, almost definitely. How good of a single sign-on experience you'll get is the question. And the more friendly the URL is for letting you put context in, if you will, if it supports like a direct link to a customer record, then you can get that customer pinned in a tab. Mm-hmm. So if it has a web interface, it supports, we don't allow clear text websites in Teams though, right? So it has to support modern security. So there's a few security controls, but yeah, you should be able to embed almost anything into a team if you want to. Because if you just come in here and you went to, there's a website control that you can toss in and then you're off to the races. So yes. And if you need to automate it, there's even some more nerdy options for scripting and automation and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of control options you have there out there. All right, what's up next?
Let's go to our handy dandy notebook. So on the general tab, there should be the OneNote notebook from that SharePoint site.
I'm going to put you center stage. And I will follow along.
All right, so as OneNote is pulling up, I see customers doing this a lot in the space of meetings, agendas, and every week when they have their weekly meeting, they have a new page. So it's easy to go back. You can actually co-author at the same time to show that multiple people are taking meeting notes, and anything you need to come back to, it's all registered here, keeping it contained on this tab of what we're working in or what we're working on. So here I've got the welcome page. Go ahead and get rid of this prompt. Let it load up a second. So what we did here is we just took a screenshot and we pasted it right into the page. You click on.
Very high tech. Now, right now, just a reminder, we're only allowing editing if you go out. So we're not actually allowing live edits within. So in order to preserve performance for it. So if you click the little globe, so they had an announcement on top of that, say, got it. Now we can come in here and we have full control over the page and we can mess around and add content or retitle it. Welcome. This is cool.
There you
go.
Right,
so you can see there we both got it up and we're ready to go. So I can edit the page and do whatever we want to for OneNote documents and everything else. I did want to point out that even in the web, you do get the ability to do dictation on top of it, right? So if you hit that little ellipsis on top of it, it says, hey, this thing wants to use your microphone, and then we're on the air. I actually have my headset, so I'd have to hold it up, but then you can see it'll start transcribing my notes. So if you're a note taker from voice, if you're better at that than you are typing, you get all that. So no matter where you go, you get that capability within the tooling on top of it. So pretty cool. You get full OneNote capability embedded inside of Microsoft Teams.
Right, and let's not forget the immersive reader. So as I'm in here, I may have something else. Again, we did earlier, I heard you talking about multitasking. If you're not using all your senses, then you're not multitasking. So you can click on the immersive reader, have it read to you while you're in another screen putting together an email. So you get a lot of different capabilities.
So it puts it in stay focused on top of things. All right. So we got the immersive reader, which is pretty cool. Anything else from our OneNote side?
I think this is it. This is where, and just to clarify again, this is a OneNote notebook that lives inside a SharePoint site. So when you create a team, automatically you do have a OneNote notebook that you can just simply add as a tab inside of your channel.
Yep, and those notebooks are secured to that team, so that any notebook you create on top of it. So documents, notebooks, meeting recordings, third-party application services, websites, all sorts of stuff. Next up, let's talk about the privacy on private channels.
Sure. So now, as of just a last few months here, we have the ability to create private channels. So I don't know if you want to blow me up. I'm a little more delayed than you are, it looks like, Doug, but
no, that's all right.
Okay. So at the team level, I can right click on the ellipsis and I can create a new channel. When it comes up, you can see create channel. So add channel. See how quickly it'll appear. Thank you for zooming in. Appreciate it. And here's the privacy. So this is where I can say, I want a private channel. I see the use case for this being a couple people inside of that group. So the permissions of who can be in this private channel are a subgroup of whom already is in that team. We have quite a few people on this team for the Success April event. I wanted just Doug and I to have a manager space. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to cancel. And when you create one, what occurs is that you get a padlock. So after the name of your channel, you have a padlock indicating that you have a private space for you and whomever you've added as a member to that channel. The other members of the team do not see this. The only person who does see it is a team owner or team owners. So let me go ahead and click in it. You'll see.
That's important. I just want to cover that. So if you and I were not a member of the manager review channel, we would not even see that such a group exists. So if you wanted to say Doug's termination plan, right? Unless I was the owner, I couldn't see it. Right. Firing Doug on Friday. Right. So you couldn't see that. But if I'm the owner, I can see it. Yes. So, or if I'm a member of it, I will see it. So it's possible if I was like sharing my desktop or something to someone else, they would see like the Fire Doug channel, right? So don't, if it is truly sensitive, don't label it with something that you never want the label to be seen. Does that make sense for people? So like, use a little common sense when it comes to security on it. Because if you're ever like, on with the help desk, sale of company plan, right? Just like use a little common sense when it comes to your channel layout. All right.
Right. Yeah, anything that's broad that you have for NDA, create a separate team and make sure you have the right people in there. That's definitely my recommendation.
Agreed. I just,
this is a nice way to just have a subgroup where Doug and I can have a conversation about, for instance, performance of our event or our event planners, and just to really have this subspace. I think this is a take from the old classic, hey, I have a SharePoint site, I need a subsite, or I need a sub document library that's private, super duper private. That's really where this request came out of, from the team's user voice, voted all the way up to the engineers, and now it's rolled out.
And it is important to note, so you and I are in here, and if you could do me a favor, so like try and just mention Doug, like in there. So if you just reply to that thread and you were to start typing Doug, right, within that chat channel right there, that would allow you to see that, or I can go full screen if you're still lagging. Oh, there it is. So notice how it pops up Doug, right? So she can pick me. But if you were to start typing someone who's not a member of this channel, like Megan, it won't even resolve. So as you start to type, at Megan's name, like it won't pop because you can't address someone who's not in that channel. It's like the address book is masked. So, right. And it should be like that's exactly what we're talking about. There's no way. Didn't find any matches, right? So that's exactly the result we would expect. And if you remember when we were over in the SharePoint side, you didn't see, you can still go to files and there's still a file section, but you didn't see those files inside of the SharePoint. Like those files were not there, and they shouldn't be there because otherwise everyone else would have access to. So it means you're establishing an entire separate file repository for this channel. So there is a little under the covers to say, the files are living secured in a different location. The conversations are secured to a different group. So one of the first things we say is if it doesn't really need to live in the same context, just use a separate team.
Yep, that really makes sense.
Right, back to our point. Like if you're a smaller company with 75 people and you have an all company channel, don't add the selling the company channel and secure it. Make a new team. It's a better security boundary.
Right.
Make it private. Hide it from the directory. Like use. It's probably an extreme example, but you get the idea. Yeah. Any other guidance for people on private channels from what you're seeing?
Yeah, I would say just if you are worried about orphan private channels, just feel good that the private channels are also located in the team's admin center under managed teams. So your team admin can go in there, review it, remove it, look at the members. So you do have administrative control. All
right. So there is a rescue in the event.
Yes.
There was some private channels and you're like, oh, Vanessa quit and she was the only person, let's say Vanessa, Brandon, and Alex all leave, and they were the people who owned that private channel. I'm sure that would never happen at Success. But if you all won the lottery, right? Let's be positive about this. And you're like, I'm out. There is still a way for an administrator to get in. And of course, that event is audited. So we can't just have administrators doing things without control. So we got all that going on.
That's right.
All right. So Vanessa, any questions on private channels? Any of that stuff?
No questions on, well, just kidding. For HR, could we have a supervisor team for team communications owned by HR, but then separate private channels for each supervisor to address ER issues with them individually?
Yeah, the only thing to note about that approach, and Michelle, I'm curious. Well, you take first swing at that one. I'm curious.
So, Vanessa, you're saying HR as a whole having a team, and then each channel being each supervisor having their own private channel to address any issues?
Yeah, I think that's the question.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to understand what's the purpose of a private channel. There's a difference of chat conversation versus a channel, and a channel really brings in the culmination of both the communication and the collaboration. Do you need a files tab, a whole separate SharePoint site? And that's really what happens when you create a private channel for kind of a private space for the supervisor. So I think you have to think through what's the purpose of having that private space? Do you need all that?
And if
that's
you do,
my take.
If you do, the only thing I would say is, say you made that one called like the manager side. If you could do it, if you had like an HR manager's team, and then have separate channels for the individual small locations or support, whatever you want to do. But remember, the general channel is always going to be accessible to everyone, because you can't secure the general channel. I mean, the whole point is that everyone has some place they can rally to. So just be a little cautious, but if you can make the model work within that, then sure. I do think, Michelle, your point is, should that just be a chat session?
Yeah.
With those people invited? Because don't forget, you don't have to make a team for everything. Like I have for my team, we have this chat, we renamed it, called the MSP MTC chat, and it's everybody from the Minneapolis MTC, and we're all in this chat channel. It's not a team, it's just a chat session. So to Michelle's, what you were saying was, if you don't need the files and stuff, then don't make a private channel, just have a chat.
And you can have, and realize your chat is your chat to whom you invite. Nobody can come into your chat without you being very targeted to add them. So you can add a few people, rename it, like you could even rename it private HR chat with whomever, but you can, be very deliberate on how to have a private communication.
All right. Yeah. Well, hopefully that was answering that one. You could do either approach, chats or secured channels. Just remember the general channel.
And I do want to point out too, just to clarify, your channels are they're not public. So you can create a public or a private channel. Public, anyone can join, and private, you, by the owner, you have to be invited.
All right, so let's see what else we got. Ooh, one of our favorites.
Yes.
Are you ready?
I'm
ready.
Let's
see how if your internet's still slow, then you can just tell me and I'll just click, and you can just tell me what to click on. So go ahead and fire it up. Next, where are we going next?
I sure did, and it still hasn't. We are going to the planning channel. This is all things planning, so whomever your planner is, maybe you throw in marketing people in here, but what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a planner plan to plan this event. So let's go ahead.
I'm going to get me going. I'm going to move you way over to the left on a thumbnail. I'm going to get me zoomed in. We're going to go like that. Hopefully that'll get us going. All right, so we're going to go to you tell me what to click on and I will click.
Okay, go ahead and click on the tab for event plan. All right, so just a little introduction. Planner is a lightweight task management tool. So you've got your tasks, your to-do, that's really your personal task management. Then you've got this middle ground here, which is planner. And I think this is fantastic for event planning, for project planning at kind of a lightweight level, and then all the way to project and project online. So to me, this is this middle ground. I absolutely love it. The ability to have buckets of information that could be going all the way from what to do, your different statuses, your preps. You can assign different tasks to people. They'll get a notification that they now have a task assigned to them. And then you can see the progress inside a chart. So go ahead and why don't you show some of the things that we put together.
Yeah, so first, if you look across the top, you'll see these buckets, the to-dos Michelle talked about on top of it. And here are all the individual tasks that we put in, and they're all assigned to people. So let's go ahead and look right here. So for presenters, right, there's confirm the presenters, right, on top of it. And as soon as you check it, it goes to completed, and you can see which ones have been completed or hide that. You've got the ability to come down and look at the individual tasks, like who's assigned to it, and what are the individual elements for the checklist that are associated to that. So pretty powerful, lightweight to-do task planning. We use this inside of Microsoft for everything.
I know, I certainly do. Valerie, it looks like you're in the screen today.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm up next, so I just.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So Val's coming up next on top of it, but so we got our plans on and things on over here. So we got prep and execute that are available from our bucket standpoint, and then we have our debrief tasks as well. There's a lot of those have my name on it. I didn't do a good enough job of deflecting to others.
I might have assigned a few things to you, but take a look at charts. I think not just being able to put things together in buckets of information, but now I can see actual status. And I can see there's something late. I bet that might be you, Doug. You're late on something. Yeah, you can see the status here. You can also filter it. So I think that's kind of fun. Oh, it looks like you're going to be tagging me.
I am too slow. Please do my work. Okay, there we go. So now I've successfully delegated in context to the plan. All right. So there we go. So you can see the tasks that are available. And of course, if you wanted to, this is kind of all, sort of, you can look at how many you got in each bucket and all that stuff.
And when managing a team, I think it's pretty interesting because you can group it by assigned to. So as you see there, you've got all the members, all tasks assigned to them, red meaning they're late. So it looks like I might be behind on something too. So it's a great way, just really simple, really easy to manage your tasks. And then if you look, the calendar.
It is clickable for like when you go in, it filters down on the side as to what's late. And no, I am every time we do something for we have this thing called mod sprints and stuff. And this is where all across the US, the technology centers plan things through Planner, and we kind of track how we doing for contribution to projects and everything else. There's obviously the more sophisticated project portfolio management, but this one's pretty cool. And to your point, schedule view.
Yeah, I mean, just really nice calendar. So think of if you're not needing anything as robust as project, but something kind of middle of the ground, I think this is absolutely fantastic.
So if we kind of recap across, what do we let's do our Harvard tour of where we're at. We showed off meeting recordings, and then we'll end off with our forms thing, right? Yep. And the ability to have meeting recordings. We showed off co-authoring in the budget channel around putting in and embedding commonly accessed documents directly as tabs for increased findability and collaboration. Because let's be honest, people are bad at finding the real copy of a document. If you pin it to a tab, they're never confused. Just put the document right there for the people. If you say, well, what you need to do is you need to go into the team and you need to go into here. Then you go to the file tab, and then you open the, for crying out loud, just name it the budget and post it in a tab, right? And then everybody's got the right thing and they don't have to think. Because when I want to get stuff done, I don't want to think, I want to work. Third-party stuff like MindMeister, which again, not just about us, it's about all those third-party things that you have on top of it, which is pretty cool. And then we have the planner integration on top of things, meeting recordings, a bunch of stuff. So we've shown you all of those first-party ones. And we got one more really cool one, which I didn't have on my list for official, but we want to talk about forms as well. And we have enough time to do so. Vanessa, can we get a time check? We have a few minutes left, yes? Or are we at?
We are just dipping into our 10-minute break that we had scheduled.
We only got one more. We got one more thing, and people can check it out on their own. Because we wanted to show you guys a little kind of how some of these things came into being as well. So you notice in our general channel, we actually did a form as well. So if you look on a tab, we added one more component to it where we just generated a survey for on top of it. And in our closeout, notice we did the little plus sign, and we tossed in a Microsoft form from the list that's on there. And then we made this end user survey on top of it. And so I think you guys might be using the survey on top of this for it. And we're just like, how do we do on the event and what can we do better? So we took that survey, we published it out, and then we tossed in the general channel for all of our people who could go and click on that survey, and then it would then take them out to the form where someone could fill out and get access to that survey. So we tried to show you all the elements of planning an event within it, a brainstorm, like some initial discussions and a meeting that we recorded so everyone could get access to it. We created the budget. We had a manager's channel for some security to talk about the fact that, maybe some people should be part of the event, maybe others should not. And we went through how to use third-party stuff, co-authoring, surveying, planning, the whole 9 yards. So hopefully that was a good beyond meetings discussion of what you can do within Microsoft Teams. So any final Q&A before we head into our break, which we're now 2 minutes late into?
Yes, one last question here as it relates to Planner. So can you save an entire set of plans for events that recur, say a couple times a year?
Short answer is yes. There's a couple of different ways to do that. It's possible to clone plans, if you will, and then bring them back in. I'm not sure how flexible it is on reassigning the dates and stuff. I haven't played much, but I know people have done that. And if it's something we can work with the success team and get that out later on, the guidance on how to do that. It might be a little nerdy, I'll warn you. Sometimes there's a GUI for things, and sometimes we're on Microsoft, we release it as script. So I won't promise that it will be visually compelling, but I'm pretty sure there's a way to do that I've seen people do.
Yep, in my experience, we've kind of done, we make a template that you copy over from event to event. So
yeah, exactly. Yep.
All
so
right,
there's a couple different ways to do it. So fire away.
Last question. So for the various apps that we've been highlighting, is there a cost for some of these?
The only app is any third-party app that you may not either already own or that does have a cost to it.
Yeah. MindMeister has a free version. So they have a freemium model, so it would depend on how much. But I wanted to show one third-party one to show you coming in. And obviously, if you were to embed Salesforce, I make no comments on what they're going to charge you or someone else. But there's a whole bunch of people who have freemium add-ins, and we tried to show nothing but at MindMeister, maybe the only one where there was a little line crossed because I don't know which trial version I had active when I showed the features. So there's some caps on it for different levels, so I'm not quite sure about that one, but everything else was included or free with Office 365. We tried to show every Microsoft thing was included in O365. So we stayed in the web the whole time. So even I don't think we even showed anything beyond a frontline worker functionality today, did we?
Nope.
Yeah, no. So you'd own this almost no matter what SKU of Office 365 you own.
Well, thank you. That looks like that's all the questions for now.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to mute audio on our side, put the roller up, give you all, I don't know, 6 to 10 minutes. We'll come back probably on time, 10:30-ish. Michelle, thank you for joining. Sorry you had slow internet, and then I had to drive more, but we made it through, and the rest of the broadcast is held pretty steady, I think. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Grab a cup of coffee, a glass of water, aisle break, whatever you want to do, and then we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to be queuing up Valerie, so you may hear us chat as we get her queued up, but we'll be online and we'll be doing a little Power BI with Valerie here quickly.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle.